Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hawkins. Today we're talking about Stranger Things Season 1, Episode 6, The Monster. Trevor, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing good. Great episode, man. Another fire episode.
I feel like we say the same thing at the start every week because it's just true. Season 1 is that good, and rewatching it has genuinely been a treat. Obviously, we left off last week with Nancy being in the Upside Down and Jonathan kind of wandering through the woods. Well, we open up this week a horror scene, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. It's very terrifying. You're on the edge of your seat, and then Nancy's in the Upside Down, and Jonathan's yelling. Great performance by both of these, Nancy seems actually terrified. Jonathan seems genuinely worried. His yelling of Nancy, you get so invested in this cold open. It's great.
I'll be honest with you. I got by a jump scare. Like I always just forget when I'm rewatching things. Like I'll be okay, a jump scare's coming up, but I'm ready. But I always kind of go like this when the Demogorgon turns around. Like it always kind of spooks me a little bit.
That's like the most easy.
I know it is,
ever.
But I'm just a baby when it comes to horror.
3, 2, 1. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's just how I am. But yeah, we get a lot more after Nancy gets out. We get like the title sequence and everything. But we get a lot of Jancy. And then a little bit of Stancy in this episode.
And some Jopper as well.
Some Jopper. Like a lot of the older kids and adults taking the reins here. It's weird to me how little of a role it feels like they have anymore.
Starting with Jancy, I was never Team Jancy, but I'm definitely kind of coming more into Team Jancy, and like Steve's like trying to with his friends who I can't stand his friends, like, oh, go check on her, goes up, looks at the window, and like he has no idea what's going on. And Nancy's sitting there and Jonathan's putting like a little blanket on her and they sleep in the same bed and they're just absolutely spooked as they should be, they're sleeping with a gun in the bed together. And Steve gets become the jealous boyfriend, writes starring Nancy the slut wheeler on the theater. Just like Steve goes low in this season and he gets his ass whooped in this episode. And easily the most satisfying thing of season 1. Season 1 Steve is he's just a dick.
He is, and as much as I love him and try and look for the best in him, this is like rock bottom for Steve. If you're looking at like his character development, like a straight line, like he plummets here. Like, he over exaggerated, in my opinion.
100%. Yeah, he like rushed to conclusions, definitely. But what do you think of a high school kid who's like in love with this girl? Then he sees them in the same room together. He hasn't heard from her, and then all of a sudden he sees her with this other guy all the time. Like, yeah, you're probably gonna get jealous. Like, I think you went a little far, but like. Went a little jealous.
Oh yeah, it's one of the most common tropes, especially in 80s movies. I think like in the Karate Kid that happens. I feel like it happens in most 80s teen movies, so it's pretty much they're paying homage to that
every day at high school.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, and then
he
over exaggerated. Yeah, and then we get their whole fight, really intense. I forget, like when the cops pull up. At first, when like Steve and Jonathan start to push each other, it's like Steve's probably gonna kick his ass. That's what I thought the first time I watched it. I was like, he's gonna kill him.
Yeah. No, and Steve genuinely thought he was gonna whoop Jonathan's ass too, but Jonathan had like just a lot of pent up anger in him.
He really did.
He didn't stop. He was just beating on this dude's face.
And the line that makes me, kind of upset, and it reminds me of like Civil War, how you can kind of flip flop between Iron Man and Cap when they're having their debates.
Right.
Is the line where I'm like, okay, I've always liked Steve. I like Steve, and then he's like, the whole Byer family's messed up. And then he starts talking about Will being missing, and it's like. You crossed the line there, man.
Crossed it, bro.
Yeah.
And that's what Steve does a lot this season, and then he's gonna have a redemption arc here, like the next episode or two. Yeah. But it's just funny because this is now the first time we see Steve get his ass whooped. It goes many times over. Yeah, it's funny. It's great. Also, you get lots of Jopper, the detective team of Jopper, which is probably my favorite storyline. Like I just love Hopper so much, and when this time they find Jane's mom, I think you know her name. I forget her name.
Terry Ives is actually her name.
Yeah. And that's definitely kind of a spooky scene, because like this lady sitting there not talking, and like actually Hopper and Joyce literally like believe her, like in what's happening. They see a picture of like 11 being drawn in like a little short hair girl, and then Hopper's just putting all the pieces together like a detective. They find out that Jonathan, I'm pretty sure this brings them back to Hawkins because they find out Jonathan got in a fight. Great scene with them, kind of spooky, kind of scary, but I love Jopper.
Oh yeah, man. I love this scene because it actually gave us answers. It gave us some answers as to like Eleven's backstory, because she's a mysterious girl. We're like, how the hell could she possibly have these powers? And they give us answers in this episode. We find out that like Terry was like volunteering for this thing, and then she was taking acid and all this stuff, and she was pregnant along the way. And then, they wrote it off as like a miscarriage, but she's like, no, my child's out there. That child's 11.
100%. And I think it's not like 1000% confirmed, but you're putting the pieces together that 11 might very well be Jane. This might be Jane's mom, 11's mom. Very good. But 11's not in this episode too much. I would say 11's almost sidelined season 1.
Which is weird because she's like front and center on the poster and like
always
like she's the main character, right? But it feels more like Hopper is the main character to me still.
100%. And like 11 definitely comes into fruition more. She doesn't talk a lot this season. Obviously season 2 she starts talking more, but she's not very much in this episode. And when you go to the boys are just bickering and yelling at each other, and love is tearing them apart.
The only one of the boys who actually has it all together right now is Dustin, because he, in my opinion, carries the kid storyline in this episode.
He like takes the reins as like leader for a little bit, and like just shows like, basically, Mike, you're being dumb. Lucas, you're being dumb. Tells Mike, you drew first blood. And then Mike is just so over the top with everything. Easily season 1 least favorite character. I'm just gonna throw it out there, dude. I can't stand him. Every time he talks, I'm like, just shut your mouth.
I think he has memory issues because like in that conversation he had with Dustin, it's like he forgot everything that just happened in that big dramatic scene. It's like, you were very much wishy-washy between your friends there, man. Like, and Dustin's calling you out on it right now. So you need to get it together.
He's like, no. He's like, yeah, you were yelling at Elle and you were yelling at Lucas, and then Dustin tells him like, he's your best friend, right? And they have a sweet moment, Mike's like, well, you're my best friend too. They're riding bikes and play a little nice score. Like, oh, it's great. And Lucas goes out on his own and he's trying to find the gate. Dumb idea. You got a wrist rocket, but then the boys obviously coming to the close of the episode, like Troy and the other bully, they find him and they're like, how'd you do it? How'd you make me like pee myself? And he's like, you pissed yourself, loser, or whatever. Funny little back and forth. Mike jumps off the cliff and gets held, brought back up, and Troy gets his arm broken. And Dustin has my favorite quote of Dustin. Yeah, you better run. She's her friend and she's crazy. Oh, dude, my God.
The score there gives me chills. It's like that drum. It's like, ba-na-na, boom, bum. And then it like picks up like the score. Sure. I know I'm super tone deaf and that was awful, but it's you guys get the point if you've seen the episode. The whole moment is chilling. It's probably one of 11's most iconic moments, I would say, which there's another one we talked about in a sec that we skimmed over. But this whole scene I love because the bullies, you can see in their eyes that like they aren't 100% believing what they're doing. Like the kid Troy is still a little scared. And like when and then his friend is like, dude, he's actually going to jump. And then when Mike actually jumps and you see them all three just run over and look over, they're just in shock. I think it would be cool to see those two bullies in like the final season, like a little callback, just seeing them like being losers now. And then them kind of like seeing Will and everyone, they're like, oh man, like,
yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Little like pay homage to like, hey, like the bullies, we'll see if that actually happens. But very, very awesome way to end the episode. Like Mike and Elle are hugging on the ground. Then Dustin comes in like a dad, and just puts his arms around them. And it was just, it's great. I love the way they end this episode. And this episode, we might have skipped over a couple things, but it was just event after event, just setting up to the penultimate and then to the finale. Like, it's just setting up so much.
No, absolutely. One moment that I want to talk about is I think it's 11's most iconic, like, gif or like the shot of her. She goes to Bradley's big guy, the grocery store, and she like grabs the waffles. And as she's walking out, the doors slam and they like the glass cracks. And that is just iconic 11 right there.
100%. Like they're starting to show more and more of her powers. I think she was really weak when she got out of like Brenner's lab. It really starting to show like more of 11's powers, but also how traumatic her childhood was. Because like we see that she can talk, but she doesn't because like she's so traumatized. And Dr. Brenner's like every time he's on screen, like you just at least for me, I'll speak for myself. I can't stand whenever Dr. Brenner's on screen. Agree. Good performance and all, but like he's just such a dick, and actually what he's doing is good and right, and like he never changes, and that's what sucks about this guy. 11 went through the ringer, and now that she's like trying to help actually find the kids who treat her normal and like help them, like it just shows a lot of her. She has a great arc.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they give us more and more flashbacks there, and again, actual origin, and that's what I love about this episode. Probably aside from like the Hopper detective stuff, is her sort of origins are starting to be revealed to us more, which is exciting. But the final shot of this episode is like the kids going into the basement. And right before that, we see like that dude in the van, which is setting up the dude in the van, like looking at Lucas. And that's setting up a really cool scene in the next episode with the vans. I'm excited to talk about that next week.
And this episode is titled The Monster. And I love how the titles always relate to a character or a certain like storyline thing that happens. And 11 says for herself, like, I'm the monster. And Mike tells her, like, no, you're not the monster. You're the hero. I love you. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and 11's like, I opened the gate, which was like a crazy moment in the episode too that I totally forgot to mention.
Totally forgot to mention. Yeah, and it's kind of like brushed over. Like, what does that mean? But like, the next, I'm pretty sure that means the Demogorgon's coming.
So real quick, I think we have the same for these across the board. Favorite character, Dustin.
Yep.
Favorite quote, she's our friend and she's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Favorite moment, same as quote. That whole moment when like 11 pulls up at the end.
A great way to end the episode, dude. It's fantastic. And if you sons of bitches, you come out and she'll kill you.
Oh man, Dustin is just so lovable, and we're starting to get more of him coming out of his shell as we get further on. But I think that's pretty much going to wrap up our talk on Stranger Things season 1, episode 6, The Monster. Only 2 episodes left in season 1, and when that finale rolls around, that'll be a real fun week for sure. But what do you guys think of this episode? Let us know in the comments down below. What's your favorite moment? Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite quote? Let's talk about it. We love to engage with you in the comments down there. Make sure to check out Trevor's channel, Film Geeks, and all of his other social medias. They're linked down below. Feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on next week's return to Hawkins. But I think that's going to do it here. And until next time, see you guys on the other side of the Upside Down.